How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Agave and Cactus Talk. Today we're going to be talking about a new project that I've been working on for a few months in my free time. Not that I have much, but the project's coming along pretty well, and now I wanted to talk about it on the podcast, and that is an Adobe oven that I'm building. So, if you listen to my other podcast about roasting pits that I'm building and above ground, ovens modeled on Jalisco's brick ovens, but then kind of like the older stone ovens, you'll know I got all these other ovens going. But my girlfriend Nory, she wanted to build a oven to bake bread from the native buckwheat, and added these buckwheat plants. I think the flowers, you can actually bake bread from it, and she used to do that at a bakery she worked at, and apparently it's pretty good. So she wanted to build an oven for that, to utilize some of the native plants we have growing here and make our own bread. And then that oven also is kind of shaped like a pizza oven, so I was open to it, and I was like, yeah, I'm down to also get a bread / pizza oven. But then I told her we should make it a little bit bigger than what we got in mind. That way I could fit agave, manfreda, in smaller sized agave piñas in there, to roast, so stuff like Utaensis, or some of the small Paris or Tobalas like Kichiokan or Cameron Blue. These are piñas that would readily fit in a little oversized Adobe pizza oven, right? But then her style of building is Adobe, and mine is really just mostly stone masonry. So I did a compromise, and I told her, okay, well, we'll do half and half, right? We'll build the oven basically, concrete, stone, the base, and then the top, the actual oven part, we'll make it all Adobe, So we started out excavating a little 1-foot foundation, filled her up with concrete, 4,000 psi, and a bunch of rebar. And that went up on cinder blocks, and we formed a, basically a box, but with the front cut out, right? So like a U. And it's, I think, 4 feet high at the moment. And right now, all the cinder block is done, all the concrete's done, all the rebar in that concrete, was placed already. And then now we've got 2.5 walls covered in stone, and the inside, we're going to cover it. The inside of that square, we're going to cover it with stucco or Adobe. And then in that square, 4 foot tall, it's 5 foot wide, and so it's a 5x5, and then it's 4 tall right now. That is going to be the area where we store all our firewood. A lot of that firewood, I've cut down so many different trees, like different olives or ficus or orange or whatever. I have all these different trunks. To the regular person, it probably just looks like a bunch of sticks and logs, but to the trained arborist, he knows how to tell the difference between all those logs. And it's great because I can pick and choose what I use to cook in ovens or roast pits or above ground ovens, because I can say, oh, I want to do this roast with only olive. I want to do this roast with only creosote. I want to do this roast with creosote, ficus, orange, olive, apple. I can choose logs from different stuff to influence the flavor, because as those logs burn, they impart different smoke, you know? So that's one thing I've been experimenting with that really not a lot of people talk about, or I don't even know what the fuck I just said. Not a lot of people really talk about, and that is the difference in, you know, the logs. Because everyone talks about, oh, okay, like all the differences that you could do when you're distilling, or when you're fermenting, you know, all the processing. But the roasting, no one ever talks about how that could be very different too, right? Based on the logs, based on the type of roast pit, if it's oven or not oven. A lot of that usually isn't mentioned. They just say roasted, and a lot of the times they don't tell you with what. But anyways, yeah, we'll store all our firewood there, and a lot of that is going to be logs and stuff coming from the land, so we can sustainably harvest firewood, right? So a lot of that's coming from green waste, from the landscaping trade, or it's coming from trees that we planted and we cut down the branches after the goats eat it. We're left with branches and we put it in a pile, or it's native creosote that we've cut back because there's a lot of dead ones, and we can collect the firewood. Creosote's an excellent firewood, imparts really great flavors, and then it's very dense, so, and full of oil, so it keeps a really good flame. So yeah, every wood burns differently. It's interesting there. But anyway, so this oven, put in your head, you know, this square basically now, it's the cinder block has gone up 4 feet. It's 5 feet wide square, and this square is now covered mostly with stone. And I've got all the steel cut now to basically form a cage on top of that stone. And then we're going to pour a 3 to 4 inch concrete 4,000 psi base. So all that steel will be encased in that concrete. And essentially off of that platform, that's going to be a 5x5 square now on top of our firewood storage area. That will be a 5x5 wide oven, so 5 feet by 5 feet, and then ideally we're probably going to add another 5 feet tall. And what we're going to build initially on top of this concrete pad is going to be a huge 5-foot dome, essentially a little bit smaller than 5 foot, maybe 4.5 foot by 4.5 foot, because it needs to, I'll get to it right now, but it'll be on the just under the edges, right, or just on the inside of the edges. And that is going to be because that dome is going to be obviously the oven, built out of Adobe brick that we're building from soil here on the farm. And you know, we're going to be making our own Adobe bricks and then firing them up, and then you know, using them like bricks to make a Adobe dome, essentially. And that dome, we're going to be going up every foot and kind of making a step pyramid. So the oven will be completely functional. You know, you kind of need it to be a dome for hold on, Cholo, ¿qué ves? Cholo. Sorry, my dog was tripping out. He was seeing my other dogs. But then, what I was saying is the shape of the oven needs to be kind of like a dome, so it like moves the heat like and distributes it evenly. But then on the outside of the dome, we're gonna build like an aesthetic kind of facade, you could say, right? Like it's not gonna be the functional oven, but it's gonna be on the outside aesthetically. And every foot it will be a step, and then every foot going up, it will be a little bit more in to essentially form a pyramid, a step pyramid. And then that all of this will be made out of Adobe as well. And at the end of it, you'll basically see a half of the oven be completely stone at the bottom, firewood on the inside right there on the storage area. And then you'll see this beautiful step pyramid with an oven hidden inside, right? And it'll be real easy to grab firewood from the bottom and just have it stored there, sufficient for a cook or two. And then as you're, cooking, you can feed the flame and make yourself some nice buckwheat bread from the native buckwheat ear. I've been thinking about how I'll use this oven. I told you I'll cook some manfreda piñas, agave piñas, small agave piñas. It's going to be a perfect size to roast up, cactus buds. So like a lot of the, and flowers and fruits. So a lot of the indigenous peoples here in California, they utilized a lot of the prickly pears from Cilindro puntia imbricata and roasted them, the fruits and the buds, with agave, what's that desert one? Desert eye. And, desert eye is a very small piña for an agave. So then they're able to roast both the cactus buds, flowers, and fruits alongside meat and alongside different agave piñas. And I always thought that was kind of cool. But I'm trying to get the same kind of vibe here, So I'm going to be able to cook, pizza, bread, agaves, different cacti, roast some cacti pads as I'm at it, right? It's kind of like having a grill where I'll throw the cactus pads on the grill and you'll get a real crunchy cactus pad. You could throw it in the little oven for a few minutes, flip it, and then boom, you got yourself a nice little crunchy pad. But I'm also thinking, okay, I can, basically use that small oven like a stove because it doesn't require a lot of firewood to get going and to keep going. And in that area, so here's the thing, thinking multi-purpose with everything, right? So I have this oven that I'm building with my girl Nory, and it's right in between these two containers that I added at the beginning of the year, which are two 9-foot something, like 9'6", and then tall, and they're 45 feet long. So I put them not side by side, but with like 30 or 40 feet in between them, so I could have like a wind-covered area where I could put a lot of cacti that haven't been prospering as well due to the wind, not the cold. So I give an example: some of the San Pedro columnars, some of the trichoseriuses, some of the blue myrtle cactus. Like, all of these are cold tolerant in the area, but the wind dries them out in the open fields very, quickly. And I'm trying to get them more large and established and adapted, and then hopefully propagate out from the ones that prosper there to the open fields, right? Because they'll be a little more adapted and stronger. And that plan's actually working. The plants that I put there, in the open field when I had put them around this time, they weren't doing as well, and now inside there, they're prospering, and a lot of those plants I brought from my girlfriend Nory's house as well. So then, a lot of them came with roots and didn't get any shock when I planted them. They're just established, going, kicking it. But other thing is, I'm using the whole area as a propagation area. I got a little cedar tree in there, incense cedar. I got 2 engelmanis, or Quercus engelmanis, which are the LA oak tree, or the oak tree native to the LA region, or one of them. We have several oak trees native here, but it's one of the most common ones that you will see in Pasadena and the city of LA. That's why I love it, and I bought 2 motherfuckers. Gosh, they're so expensive. 2 5-gallons cost me $100 each, but I put them on either side of the oven. So eventually it'll be like the beautiful oven, and then these giant oak trees towering over the oven on the top, right? Which would be dope. But then at the base of those oaks, I have like tons of potted up Opuntia littoralis, and then I have probably 10,000 agave angustifolia marginata, espadin, or angustifolia subspecies marginata and espadin, and agave vilmoriana, so a mole. I have lots of different agave mapisagas in there, and just a whole bunch of shit that I'm propagating, and it's being protected from the wind. And essentially, here's what I'm thinking with this oven, right? Because it's in this area, I'm going to be able to run it all the time, and it's going to be creating heat because the wind runs like from east to west, and most of the times when it goes up against those containers, it goes through the backside and brings it going south. So essentially, that oven's heat will be taken by wind very often throughout all those plants, which is like a built-in like little heating kind of geothermal system for those plants. So I can always be propagating young plants in this area, and they'll stay warm if I consistently am using that oven, right? So that was the other kind of like bonus, I guess, to building this oven. And obviously we have lots of firewood, and I cut lots of trees down all the time, always feeding greenways to the goats, and that causes me to have piles and piles of basically sticks and stuff and logs. And I make a big windbreak. I put them up against my fence and I use them as a windbreak. But ideally, I don't want that fire-prone big old pile of sticks, because it takes years and years for that mulch to break down. And like, say I put a 5-foot pile, 2 years, 3 years later, it's maybe a 3-foot pile. So, it's not breaking down fast enough, and I want to utilize that and put that back into the soil, right? So if I use it in the oven, I'm going to be getting tons of biochar essentially in the oven when I'm cleaning it, and I could spread that throughout my plants and put those logs back into the soil essentially, and also not have them as a fire threat, right? So I've cleared all my lands around my farm, but that windbreak's always given me it just worries me because I don't want a fire to catch some of that stuff. But anyways, so I'll be using lots of that in the oven and in the fire pits and in the all these different ways that I'm using to roast agave. But I'm not sure how I would classify this oven I'm building. I guess it's a Adobe stone hybrid oven, and like I said, it's going to be used for cooking food for me and my family and my girlfriend, and we're going to be making roasted agave and cactus that we could potentially then ferment and make wine or spirits or whatever from. So it's just, I'm trying to, how I was explaining in the other podcast about the roast pits, I'm trying to have the underground, roast pits, the above ground stone, basically steam ovens, or a smoke oven. Then I'm trying to have the fire pits. Then I'm trying to have this stone Adobe oven. So that will give me now 4 or 5 options of roasting agave and different foods and stuff, right? So that's going to give me a lot of variety in how I can manipulate. That's not a nice word, huh? Manipulate. In how I can influence this agave, right? So I think that'll be the best, because I'm seeing that obviously the underground roast pit is different from the fire pit, and I'm seeing that each one of these styles is going to carry their different flavor profiles and influences, so I want to be able to utilize them all. And this Adobe stone hybrid oven will just be another option to utilize. That will also, like I said, be able to make me food and stuff. So, watch out for the buckwheat bread. We're going to be slinging that soon, I guess. But all the cinder block for the oven, all the concrete was recycled. I just had it in my containers. All the rebar and the steel, it's all been recycled. I just had it from leftover projects. All the stone is native Aztec sandstone here from the land. So it looks fucking beautiful, like some ancient church or something. The stonework, it's so whew, it's beautiful. And it was great too, because I was teaching my girl about stonework, and she was getting used to placing rocks and stuff. So yeah, it's fun. Always doing some stonemasonry, but so all the materials I had basically there. The Adobe, as I mentioned, we're gonna do it all ourselves. And the Adobe we're gonna be building, most likely, we're gonna choose a site to excavate for a new probably shed or shade house. And as we're excavating for that to put a proper foundation, we're going to be taking out lots of soil that could be used for making clay or Adobe, right? Sorry, the clay is what will make the Adobe. But then we've built these forms to build some big bricks, and these forms will be able to build lots of bricks at once. And we're going to be making enough bricks for our oven and more, and then we'll be able to start building that portion of the stone oven. But the next step right now that I've placed all the steel and stuff for the concrete platform on top of the stone, once we put that, then we can start adding Adobe. So right now we're probably going to start building Adobe bricks, and then bringing concrete, because I don't have any more, to build that platform. That's the next step. And yeah, for Dia de los Muertos, we took out those rebar and stuff that I had placed there just so that we could utilize it as an ofrenda site. But now I'm going to replace all that steel so that and tie it in place so that we could start forming up that 4-inch slab. And soon we'll have a nice platform to build up from. Well, yeah, I just wanted to update all of you on that little project I got going on, and really just trying to show you that the more options you have on your farm for processing, roasting, fermenting agave or your plants, the better. I'm going to give you lots of different options. And even on the fermentation, right, you could ferment like the winery people. You could do it in a wooden barrel even, or you could choose steel tanks, or you can do underground tanks to maintain temperature consistent. You can do, there's lots of different ways to even have options there, right? So it's like, what I'm trying to make you realize is don't lock yourself into one way of doing things, right? Oh, I only do underground roast. Oh, I only ferment in steel tanks. Oh, I only distill X agave species, right? I already know which, or you guys already know which species I was going to say that I hate. But don't lock yourself in. Give yourself options, because one day it may be that what you're thinking is the way to go with your business is not the way, right? So there may be, like, I give an example. Let's just, picture this. You build a agave spirit brand in California, and you roast one way, you ferment one way, and you distill a certain species. And you get your feet wet, you build distributors, you build networks, but your margin isn't very well. It's not allowing your company to succeed, But check it out. Maybe you switch up the roasting, you switch up the fermenting, you switch up the species, and you become something unique and something that's very special. And you're able to now bring in some marketers and realize how to market that. And now you're making good margins on it. My point is, don't ever lock yourself into only one way of doing things, because when it comes time to adapt, you're not going to be very inclined to do so, because you're so locked in on one method. Whereas if you're always having tons of options, that when one option isn't working, you can easily adapt to the other, You get me? And that's always what I'm doing here. Sometimes I may be selling lots of plants. Other times I may be selling lots of seeds. Other times I be selling goats. Other times I be selling lots of bugles. Other times I be selling fucking geese. The point is, if you're always finding different revenue streams, then your agave business, your farm, your small agricultural operation, it's always going to be able to stay in business. And yeah, hope you learned something today. Just wanted to talk to you about that oven because I think it's a cool, simple oven that a lot of people could build for very cheaply. Maybe, not sure, $1,000 and several days of hard back-breaking, sweaty labor. You could build yourself a nice little oven. The underground roast pit, also something that's not very expensive, and you could build in just a few days of some hard work, right? But the point is, a lot of people, for instance, in Jalisco, they don't want to get into the roasting game because they think the only way to do it are these giant hornos, made out of brick and whatever that could fit 100 tons and shit. And no, you go back to my grandpa's time, they had smaller hornos built out of stone that could fit 10 tons, and it was in people's farms. But as stuff consolidated, that's why they shifted over to brick, so they could build them quicker, cheaper, faster. And the quality shifted, in my opinion. I think Jalisco should go back to stone hornos. Fuck the steam, bring back the smoke. But, to each their own. I mean, these brick ovens are obviously profitable for a lot of companies. But, yeah, anyways, it's just another affordable option that now you know about. Build yourself an Adobe or an Adobe stone hybrid or a stone oven, because you're going to be able to cheaply do it, quickly do it, and utilize whatever you gotta do on your farm. So yeah, have a good one. Hope you learned something, and gonna keep on building that oven. Hopefully we finish it in another couple months, and when we do, we'll definitely be posting about it. But I've been posting tons of pictures of the stonework, and people are in love with it. So hopefully soon we'll get to work on building some Adobe bricks and also post some updates. But yeah, have a great rest of the day, everyone. And if you got any topics or questions you want me to talk about on Agave and Cactus Talk, just let me know. But that's it for now. Have a great rest of y'all's day. Peace.